Hi, John McElroy here, talking all things automotive. For years, actually for several decades, I've been doing what I call the industry report card. I collect a lot of data on the top car companies so I can compare how they're doing against each other. And then I grade them on how they did in the last year. And this is strictly by the numbers. I let the data do the talking to take out any bias that I might have. So let me set the stage of what you're going to see in this video. First, I'm going to show you how the top 12 car companies in the world rank in terms of the number of vehicles they produced. Then I'm going to rank them by how much revenue they generated. But I don't use sales and revenue as part of my grading system because that would put the smaller companies at a disadvantage. But where I do start grading them is when we come to profitability, and especially when it comes to their profit margins, both net profit and operating profit. I also rank them by how much profit they made on each vehicle they sold and by how much revenue and profit they generated with each and every one of their employees. This gives you a good idea of how well the executives at these companies manage their business.
Well, you already know how this one ends, don't you? Nevertheless, we're going to watch this. John's done the hard work here, looking at the world's automotive manufacturers by the numbers, vehicles sold, revenue, operating margin, stuff that actually matters, plus some very surprising, insightful comments from John himself, who, for those of you who don't know, John put Sandy Munro on the map, at least outside of the automotive world and into the world of autists, engineers, combinations thereof, and a few casual Tesla stock investors. This is going to be glorious. Speaking of glorious, if you've somehow missed Elon Musk completely and utterly destroying a BBC NPC, check out the most recent video on this channel.
I give them points for how they're ranked in each category, and then I add up all the points to see who did the best and who did the worst. And then I give them letter grades based on that, and I'll show you their grades at the end of this video. So let's start out by ranking the car companies in terms of how many vehicles they sold last year. Toyota and Volkswagen topped the list with more than 8 million vehicles each. But that was a bit of a shock to me because pre-COVID, they were both over 10 million vehicles. And look at the Hyundai Group in third place. I think a lot of people will be surprised to learn how big it's grown to be. And Stellantis is no slouch either, in fourth place. I also want you to look towards the bottom of the list, with Mercedes, BMW, and Tesla in 9th, 10th, and 12th place.
Just want to take a moment to really let this one sink in. Rankings by vehicle sales, the world's largest automotive manufacturers as of 2022. Don't want to spoil the movie for you folks, but I'm going to, so if you don't want to know how this one ends, maybe skip ahead a little bit. Toyota will never again sell more vehicles than they did in 2022. Volkswagen will never again sell as many vehicles as they did in 2022. You guys know where this is going. Same shit for Hyundai. Same shit for Stellantis, same shit for General Motors, same shit for Ford, same shit for Honda. I'm not kidding, and I'll be here to be held accountable in a decade or so where we can see what's played out. Of course, one or two of these companies may defy the odds, but I'm trying to make a point here. Toyota and Volkswagen, who previously on a good year sold upwards of 11 million vehicles in a single year, will never sell close to those numbers again. Furthermore, if we fast forward a few years, yes, a few years, number one will probably be somewhere around the 6 million vehicles sold in a single year. Meanwhile, Tesla will fly up the list. And a few years after that, Tesla's going to take out the number one spot. Toyota and Volkswagen, who previously were number 1 and 2, will be somewhere down here in terms of the actual numbers of vehicles they're selling. They'll be struggling to ramp EV production, and everyone will be like, oh, I didn't actually think Tesla was going to disrupt the entire automotive industry and vehicle sales would collapse and the ICE vehicle was going away. I thought the experts who said people will still be buying ICE vehicles in 2035 knew what they were talking about. Oops, I'm silly. So just wanted to flag that now, primarily just so I can clip this in a decade's time and go, look, I called it again. I think this is something that a lot of folks are completely overlooking. Tesla will become the world's largest automotive manufacturer a lot sooner than people realize because most people seem to be under the impression companies like Volkswagen and Toyota will be scaled up and still be selling around 10, 11 billion vehicles per year in the future. As I said, they're well past their peak automotive sales. You can count on it. Now, I don't know for sure and I haven't modeled this out explicitly. All I can do is a best guess, and my best guess is that Tesla will become the world's largest automotive manufacturer by unit volume, somewhere around that 5.5, 6 million units per year mark, because at that point in time, Toyota, Volkswagen, Hyundai, they'll have seen their sales collapse. Same to Stellantis and General Motors, and so on. Back to you, John.
You'll see why I'm highlighting them in the very next chart, which is how they all rank in terms of the revenue they generated. Now, VW and Toyota have switched places at the top, and Stellantis moves up to third place. Shockingly, Hyundai drops down into ninth place. So despite all the vehicles it sells, it generates far less revenue, and I think that's because it sells a lot of cheap cars in a lot of developing countries. Also, note how much Mercedes-Benz moved up the list to fourth place, and that BMW moved up too. Tesla only moved up one position to the 11th spot, but it's amazing to see that Tesla generated almost as much revenue as Nissan did. No doubt it's going to surpass Nissan this year, and if someone had told me 5 years ago that this was going to happen, I would have said they're crazy. But the numbers don't lie.
Indeed. In fact, these numbers paint quite a clear picture. In case you missed it, Tesla did about as much revenue as Nissan did, selling half as many vehicles. More interesting, however, is John admitting that if you had have told him 5 years ago that this would happen, he would have laughed you out of the f***ing room. Well, I was telling people 5 years ago that this would happen and getting laughed out of the room. Yet here we are. Now, this isn't a diss on John. Just about every industry expert in the automotive world, the ICE world, has been blindsided by what Tesla has done. The stock market didn't see this coming. I do not know how many times in 2016, 17, 18 and 19 I had a conversation with friends, family, colleagues and so on, trying to point out what Tesla was doing, investing now, going to turn an insane profit sometime probably 2019 or so, maybe 2020. It's around the corner. I started this YouTube channel in late 2019 to warn the world what was about to happen. And a few people laughed me off the internet, and a few people said, maybe this guy's got a point. So here's something else that people won't expect to occur in 5 years. I'm telling you now what will happen so that you can say, if you had told me 5 years ago, which I'm doing right now, that would happen, I wouldn't have believed you. Here's something that most automotive experts won't believe, most analysts won't believe, and most retail investors won't believe. In 5 years' time, Tesla will be the world's largest and most profitable and highest revenue automotive manufacturer. No contest. They'll sell way more vehicles than any other company. They'll make way more revenue than any other company. They'll have higher profit margins than any other company. They'll do higher net income, operating income. Name your metric, and no one is catching up.
Okay, here's where it really starts to get interesting. When we look at how much profit each company posted, and I was shocked to see that BMW was the most profitable car company last year with nearly $20 billion in profits. Another shock is to see Stellantis in second place. And as many of you know from a previous video that I did, Stellantis gets most of its profits from the Chrysler Group in North America. Toyota and Volkswagen are in the third and fourth position, but that's not too impressive to me because they sold millions of more vehicles than BMW and Stellantis did. Also, note how far down the list that Hyundai is, even though it's the third largest producer in the world. Most impressively, look at Tesla in sixth place, even though it made the fewest vehicles of any of these companies.
This is quite incredible. Not surprising, at least to me, but quite incredible. Selling far and away the least vehicles of any of the companies on this list. 12th spot in terms of vehicles sold. In the 6th spot in terms of net profit. And remember, they're still ramping a few factories. They're not at massive scale. Tesla still has a long way to go. More embarrassing still, and I do want to underscore the word embarrassing, Toyota and Volkswagen each selling over 8 million vehicles for the year. Tesla selling 1.3 million vehicles within spitting distance of the same net profit earned by VW and Toyota, selling 5-6 times as many vehicles. I wonder what happens as Tesla continues to scale up their production.
And then Renault and Ford show up at the bottom of the list because they didn't make any money at all last year. Of course, a better way to analyze profitability is to look at it as a percentage of total revenue, which is the profit margin. And that shows you how well management manage their companies.
Oh boy, the suspense is killing me. I have no idea which company will have managed their company, their business, better than the other companies. Does anybody have any ideas who this company may be? This would mean that the company is out executing the rest of the industry. Can't wait to find out who this is. I've got no idea.
Kablamo! Tesla jumps to the top of the list with the highest net profit margin in the business. BMW and Mercedes are in second and third place, and Stellantis outperforms all the other full-line legacy manufacturers in fourth. Toyota, General Motors, Volkswagen, Hyundai, and Honda are all clustered in the 5% to 7% range, which is very typical for legacy full-line automakers. But looking at net profit alone doesn't give you enough insight. That's because net profit can be affected by things like special charges and write-offs and different tax rates. So I ranked them all by their operating profit margin. Operating profit tells you how well they ran their operations without any of those other financial adjustments. And once again, Tesla tops the list, and by a wide margin, with a 17% operating profit margin.
Wow, so surprising. Didn't see this coming. I wish I did. I probably would have gotten a time machine, gone back a few years and bought some Tesla stonk, and then maybe even started a YouTube channel to try and explain what was going to happen so that I'd have a lot of credibility a few years later when it played out. What a missed opportunity.
Mercedes is in second, but with Stellantis hot on its heels, and BMW is the only other one with a double-digit margin. I think a decent return for full-line legacy automakers is an 8% operating margin. VW achieved that, but all the others missed it. And as you'll see later, this really hurt the grades they got. Of course, talking about percentages is kind of abstract for most people. So the next category is all about something most people can relate to. How much money each company made for every vehicle they sold. That is, their net profit per unit. And by this point, I'm sure you're not at all surprised to learn that Tesla, once again, is at the top of the list. It made a net profit of $9,557 for every vehicle it sold. But I'm also impressed with BMW's net of $8,166. Mercedes-Benz has got to be scratching its head over why BMW makes more than it does. And here's something else that I need to point out. You know, I always thought that scale really counted for something in the auto industry. The more vehicles you make, the more you can spread out your costs, and the higher your profit margins should be. And the more vertically integrated you are, the more profitable you should be. But look at where Toyota and Volkswagen are on this list. In 5th and 6th place. They have more scale and a higher level of vertical integration than all the other legacies. Not as vertically integrated as Tesla, but more than all the others. And yet their scale and vertical integration does not seem to give them much of an advantage.
Possibly one of the most insightful slides in the entire presentation. To John's point, in theory, greater scale, all other things being equal, which they're not, and we'll discuss that in a moment, more scale should mean higher profitability per unit, because you are benefiting more from economies of scale, parts in common, processes in common. You can buy materials in bulk and get a bulk discount. This is how the world works. You see, here's where Volkswagen, Toyota, and many other legacy automotive companies completely and utterly fuck up. Instead of producing a single category killer per category, they spread themselves incredibly thin by falsely believing that consumers want 420 different variations of every vehicle type, style, color, feature, functionality, and so on. Remember, complexity appeals to stupid people. Many stupid people currently call the shots at legacy automotive manufacturers. And what's even worse is that many stupid people, to whom complexity really appeals, struggle to understand how Tesla could sell as many vehicles as they currently are, or more importantly, intend to sell in the future with so few vehicle models. Don't you understand, Tesla? You need more vehicle models. Toyota's got 42 different SUVs. General Motors has 1,200 different variations on this vehicle. You're not doing it right, Tesla. You're doing it wrong. As we can see here, just between you and I think Tesla's doing it right. This is an indictment on the automotive industry. At Tesla's scale, they're making more money per vehicle sold than any other automotive manufacturer on the planet. And in fairness, obviously, at this point in time, the average selling price on a Tesla vehicle is higher than a Toyota or a Volkswagen, but not for long. Of course, if you'd make that argument, obviously, BMW and Mercedes should be making more money per vehicle sold than Tesla today. They're at comparable or slightly larger scale, but they're high-end luxury automotive manufacturers with higher ASPs. The next time you hear a potato explain why Tesla's doomed because they don't have enough vehicle models, maybe refer them to this slide.
Also, note how little profit the Hyundai Group makes on all the vehicles it sells. Only $831. No wonder they want to ramp up the Genesis brand as fast as they can. They need to sell more cars with higher profit margins.
I'd just like to make a very important point. On screen now, ranking by net profit per unit sold, as in how many thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars do you make per vehicle sold. Now, in fairness to Ford in particular, they're going to have many more unprofitable years in the future transitioning to EVs. I just want to flag that now. This is distorting Ford's profitability per vehicle sold. It's true, these are the actual numbers from 2022, but just keep in mind, If we rewind the clock a few years, Ford will be making a few hundred, maybe a few $1,000s per vehicle. But I just want to say something here. If you're in the business of selling products for tens of thousands of dollars each, as in cars, and you're not making many thousands of dollars per unit sold, you are doing it wrong. Can you imagine being in the business, the complicated, risky, difficult, hard business of manufacturing complicated objects at scale that consumers are paying tens of thousands of dollars for, and you're not even making $1,000 per unit sold? You may as well just give up. There's too much risk involved. What if consumers are unwilling to pay this much for the vehicle? What if your cost to produce the vehicles suddenly increases by, let's say, $831? Suddenly Hyundai is making zero money per unit sold. $0. Do you understand? The razor-thin margins here are an incredible risk factor. And that's at scale. If scale starts to reverse and they're selling less vehicles, guess what? Their fixed costs stay the same. Their cost per vehicle goes up. Their profit per vehicle goes down. To provide some context, me, some dickhead on the internet, whose overheads are basically zero, whose startup costs were basically zero, I am making more money per unit sold, as in per video posted to YouTube, than probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these automotive manufacturers. And that's just from the YouTube ad revenue. And if you include the flow-on effects from posting a video on YouTube, people signing up to Patreon and so on, I'm making more money per unit sold, as in video published to YouTube, than half of these automotive manufacturers are. With no overhead. I don't have to make complicated shit. I just turn on a camera and talk. Do you understand what a dire situation this is for the automotive industry? This is as profitable as these companies will be per vehicle sold for years to come before they eventually go bankrupt. I mean, before they successfully transition to electric vehicles and come after Tesla finally. I really do encourage you guys and girls to just let this slide sink in. This is before Tesla's reached massive scale. And admittedly, their ASPs will come down. We have to factor that in. I'm not trying to be intellectually dishonest here. But bro, Tesla, at tiny scale, 1.3 million vehicles sold last year, approximately. They're making more than 10 times as much money per unit sold as a Hyundai. 5 times as much money as some of the well-known automotive manufacturers out there, and even luxury automotive manufacturers, whose ASPs are way higher than Tesla. Tesla's making so much more money per unit sold, and they still haven't scaled up. They still haven't driven costs down. Oh, you remember the whole 50% lower cost to produce a compelling electric vehicle? Remember that whole thing, Investor Day 2023? Guess what? They're not going to have to sell them for 50% less. I think what I'm trying to say is, nothing to see here, folks. Legacy automotive manufacturers will definitely be fine. And if you don't believe me, just listen to what their CEOs are saying. You can definitely trust their CEOs.
Operating profit is a good indicator of how well an automaker ran its operations, but how much did it get out of its people in terms of revenue and profit? And now BMW jumps to the top of the list. It's the only automaker in the world that generated $1 million for every person on the payroll. Mercedes-Benz, General Motors, and Ford all generated over $900,000 per employee. But everyone else made less, and in some cases, a lot less.
First of all, holy shit, BMW. This is incredible. Over $1 million in revenue per employee, although we do need to differentiate revenue versus profit. Remember, we just saw Tesla's profit. The number 6 on the list, despite a fraction of the vehicles produced. Profit's what really counts. That's what falls to the bottom line. But even so, pretty impressive. But let's talk about why this may be. Given how highly profitable Tesla is, you would hope they'd be a little bit higher on this list as well, right? Well, here's the thing. They're still in growth mode. They're still in startup mode. Tesla is investing aggressively in projects and technology and hardware that are not currently bringing in any revenue, and others barely any at all. How much revenue has Tesla made on their humanoid robot project? Oh, that's right, none. How much revenue have they made on their Dojo hardware? Oh, that's right, none. I could go on with countless other examples. The point I'm making here is that Tesla's revenue per employee is currently being artificially suppressed by heavy investment in future growth projects. They're still scaling up. Fast forward a few years, and Tesla will be number 1 on this list, revenue per employee as well. But as I mentioned, revenue doesn't mean shit. Profit is what counts. You can't spend revenue, you can spend profit.
One reason the Volkswagen Group is at the bottom of the list is that it employs far more people than any other automaker. 675,000 people. That's more than General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis put together. But the rankings change when you look at how much profit each company generated per employee. BMW is still at the top of the list, but Tesla jumps into second place, with Mercedes not too far behind. GM and Stellantis are almost even Steven, and VW and Hyundai didn't do very well, even though they're far better off than Nissan, Renault, and Ford.
This is the slide we were waiting for. Profit per employee. Now, suddenly, Tesla in the number 2 position. And as I mentioned a moment ago, they're still investing aggressively in countless growth projects that are currently producing zero revenue, and not only producing zero revenue, but costing money. They're losing profit. This is dragging down Tesla's profit per employee for now. None of the other companies on this list are investing in the kind of growth projects that Tesla's investing in. None of the other companies on this list are scaling up and growing like Tesla is. I could keep going on. You guys get the point, right? It doesn't make sense unless Tesla is so much better than these other companies that they be anywhere close to the top of the list in terms of net income per employee, net profit. It doesn't make any sense unless Tesla is so far ahead of the competition, executing near flawlessly, for them to be so high on this list in terms of net profit per employee, while they're still scaling up and aggressively investing in countless, extremely expensive, money-burning growth projects. Remember Elon Musk tweeted something the other day, long-term thinking will be rewarded? You know what this is going to look like in 10 years?
Which come up at the bottom of the list in most of these charts. Okay, so now we get to the moment of truth. When you put all these categories together and add up all the points, who came out on top?
The suspense is killing me, as you can clearly tell. Does anyone have any ideas who will come out on top?
Just so you know my methodology, since there are 12 companies, I gave them points in descending order depending on how they did in each category. So if a company came in first place in a category, it got 120 points. The next one down got 110 points, and then all the way down to 12th place, which was worth 10 points. Then I added up all the points for each company in each category and gave them a grade based on how they did. So now it's time for you to see what kind of grade they got on their report card. Drum roll, please. And Tesla tops the list of the top 12 automakers in the world.
I am shocked. I did not see this coming because I thought the competition was coming for Tesla.
But Mercedes was right behind it. I gave them both an A+ for their results. BMW and Stellantis also did really well, which earned both of them an A-. But I need to put this in more context. Tesla, Mercedes-Benz, and BMW only sell luxury vehicles, which gives them an advantage over the full-line manufacturers, and that actually makes Stellantis' performance look all that much more impressive. You'll also note that VW, Toyota, and GM are grouped together with a very similar overall performance. And then, since the average for all the automakers was a score of 327 points, everyone who came in below average was graded accordingly, and the ones which performed well below average earned poor grades. So there you've got it, the 2023 industry report card. I really got a kick out of putting all these numbers together, and I hope this helps you get a better insight into what's going on in the global automotive industry.
Brilliant analysis here from John. However, I do just want to add something. All of the companies that we've seen on this list, in rank order, of every company, there's only one currently growing at a ridiculous rate. Everyone else is either stagnant, declining, or hoping in the future to once again be growing after a massive decline. Most of them will not make it. In fact, if John's still doing these in 10 years' time, we're going to have a very different looking list. Tesla, a bunch of Chinese automotive manufacturers, and the one surprising automotive manufacturer from the legacy era that somehow survived. That will be what the list looks like in the future. The one thing that John's list didn't factor in, not a criticism, just an observation, is momentum. And that's what's really worth understanding. Tesla's not only moving in the right direction, they've already scaled the mountain. They're now in cruise control. Not that they're resting on their laurels, but they've already won the decade. Their lead truly is unassailable. All of the other companies we've seen here, regardless of their ranking, their report card, have to climb multiple Mount Everests. And here's the challenge, something that John probably isn't fully aware of, although he might understand to some degree. But again, this is the same guy who 5 years ago couldn't imagine Tesla being so profitable, yet here we are. As I've said many times, ICE vehicle sales are already collapsing. People do not seem to understand this. Oh, it's just a supply chain, don't worry, they'll get back to their old scale. They won't. It's already over, as I discussed at the very beginning of this video. I expect in a few years' time, companies like Toyota and Volkswagen, who previously were selling 10, 11 million vehicles per year, and currently are selling 8-ish million vehicles per year, a few years' time will be selling 7, then 6, then 5, then 4.5. At the same time their ICE vehicle sales collapse, and so too their profits, they need to invest tens of billions of dollars, ramping up EV production, and until they get there, they're going to be losing tens of thousands of dollars per EV produced. There's only one way this ends for legacy automotive manufacturers: filing for bankruptcy. So don't be fooled by the current snapshot of the automotive market. The one thing that's missing from John's analysis is the trajectory of the companies discussed. And now, if you'll excuse me, I need to take a leaf out of the book of the fake news, aka the hate stream media, aka purveyors of the one true narrative, by saying something. And if I say it, it must be true. Are you ready? Time for a seamless segue between the automotive industry scorecard and me trying to help you guys and girls feel and perform your best. That was the smoothest segue in the history of smooth segues. Because I said so, it must be true. By now, you may have heard Athletic Greens AG1 is a great way to fill in nutritional gaps, boost energy, immunity, mood, improve gut health, and just overall feel and perform your best. I've personally been taking this stuff now for over 2 years and promoting it aggressively for more than 3 months because I'm trying to help as many of you folks as I can to feel and perform your best. If you head to athleticgreens.com/SMR or click the link in the pinned comment, you get a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. And as you can see on screen now, you can try it. If you don't get the results you want, no big deal. With 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics and probiotics and adaptogens and digestive enzymes, Athletic Greens AG1 is the best bang for buck once a day, everyday health habit that I'm aware of. It's so simple. 1 scoop once a day. That's it. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the pinned comment or head to athleticgreens.com/SMR. If you're a little bit more of a skeptic, don't worry, that's okay. I've taken the liberty of hand selecting some extremely legitimate testimonials that I definitely didn't make up. I would never do such a thing as to invent a testimonial just to be a bit of a troll. Here's the first extremely legitimate testimonial. Before I began taking AG1, I trusted the mainstream media and thought the BBC was a legitimate source of unbiased truth. After taking AG1, I realised that Orange Man Bad was onto something when he coined the term fake news. Uh-oh, this is getting a bit political. Uh-oh, watch out. Oh no. And I don't even like Orange Man Bad. Thanks for opening my eyes and turning my brain back on, AG1. Now I only like the other BBC. Customer since... What the hell is that? That's a weird name. What kind of troll parents call somebody that? You need new parents, dude. Here's another one. Geez, this is really long. About 2 years ago, I heard some dickhead on the internet make sweeping generalizations about the hate stream media. I immediately unsubbed from his YouTube channel and even left a comment explaining I left because of his far right-wing conspiracy theories. I accidentally continued watching his daily uploads despite proudly announcing my departure, to which he said, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out," instead of begging me to stay. How rude. That is a bit rude. 3 months ago, he began promoting AG1 relentlessly, which is obviously proof he is a scammer. I decided to buy AG1 just to ask for a refund after a month because I'm a dick. But something strange happened. Within days of starting AG1, I realised he may have had a point. I'm too ashamed to admit I still watch the channel or that AG1 is awesome, so don't tell him. But this stuff is the shit. From a confused admirer. Someone else appears to be ashamed. Let's read this too. I'm ashamed to admit, I used to be an NPC and thought it was for my protection, not their quarterly profits. Does anyone know what this guy's talking about? I'm very confused. I definitely don't understand. And also, that I was inherently racist and racism is the best way to fight racism. Oh, but also, billionaire bad. Elon, biggest billionaire, therefore Elon bad. Within 1 month of starting AG1, I stopped dyeing my hair blue and being angry at the world. A few weeks after that, I started to see and think instead of rage and emote. I feel like AG1 has given me the energy to stop playing the victim. Still not enough energy to spell correctly though, my friend. And actually take control of my life. Now I just need to find a way to get rid of my angry, bitter, green-haired girlfriend without being attacked by a rage mob. Thanks AG1. My life is in danger, but I've never felt better. Ex-NPC. Customer since January 2023. Well, that's all the proof I need. Go get you some Athletic Greens AG1 by clicking the link in the pinned comment or heading to athleticgreens.com/SMR. Jokes aside, guys, girls, I'm trying my best here to help everybody watching. I know some of you have trust issues. You're still, I don't know, I don't think it's going to work. Just try it. What's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't work and you continue to be a little bitch and let your green-haired, angry, bitter girlfriend walk all over you. I didn't say that. For real though, please. For your own sake, just try it. Or if you're too broke and or just can't be bothered, just go get some sunlight, move your body a little bit and don't eat so much garbage today. You'll probably feel better. And don't forget, if you'd like to unlock over 300 exclusive videos, many of them far too spicy for YouTube, you can join Patreon with the card in the corner or the link in the pinned comment. I'll see you over there. I love ya.